I'm Erin O'Byrne and welcome to Everything EFL podcast. I'm passionate about serving teachers and I offer training for schools and institutions whose language teachers need a little refresher, a change of mindset and some super practical ideas to put into their classrooms straight away. There is no one-size-fits-all lesson plan, but you've got a friend and support system in me. I can help reduce your overwhelm, give you some teacher inspiration, and improve your work-life balance. How? With some solid advice, takeaways you can try out immediately, and some much-needed teacher love, because your well-being is important too. Are you ready to make small changes one step at a time and remember how amazing you are? Let's go! Hello, you gorgeous teacher. If you're one of my lovely regular listeners, welcome back. If you're brand new to Everything EFL, you are most welcome and I hope you stick around. This week's episode is directly connected to the theme of my free webinar coming up very, very soon. So what you hear here will definitely be worth your time, and it will also be worth your time signing up to the webinar, which is free. Did I say that already? Anyway, I'll come back to that in a little bit. So here's my question for you. How do you structure your lessons, my darling teacher? What does that mean? Well, lead in of some description and then you sort of get down to the meat and potatoes of the lesson, possibly after a little warmer at the beginning. How long is your lesson? Some of you, like me, have the luxury of, nice long lessons where we can sort of explore the language and do lots of different things. But I know that some of you have much less time, maybe even an hour or 45 minutes once or twice a week. And you have to pretty much cram as much as you can in. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that next week, the kind of amount that you choose to teach. But for this week, what we're going to focus on is the length of your activities. Now, obviously, if there's something like a reading or a writing, it's going to take longer. But what I recommend is mini tasks or shorter activities, more kind of bite-sized. So before I give you more details of that, let's just talk about our students' attention span, shall we? Because this is all directly connected, as you well know. Now, obviously, children, young learners, you need to switch things up every 10 to 15 minutes. Their attention span, their focus just isn't there. But I would argue that teenagers and a lot of adults are fairly similar now. And if anyone has ever seen a student scrolling in their lesson, then you know exactly what I mean. And we are dealing with a severe addiction epidemic in practically every single member of our class. And it means, due to the bite-sized nature of social media content, that attention span just isn't there. So let's add all that to the general fatigue. If you have adults, they might be working. If you have teens and young learners, information is sort of going into their brain. But, especially if it's the end of the day or the end of the week, it just might be a little bit less absorbent, shall we say. Any stress they might be experiencing and, all the other lessons that they're having during the day. And of course, there's neurodivergence. I think we're getting a better understanding of it. Doesn't mean the job is any easier for the teacher. Plus, there might be those sort of motivational factors like, what's the point of this? Or this is boring. Or, I've talked about this before. You can't please everyone. You can only do your best. Okay, that's my little mindset chat for you today. And whatever you're doing, some students just might not be into it. However, when you are planning your lessons, whether it's long or short, or think about how often you can switch things up. So we talked about like peaks and valleys and energy and stuff like that last week, but let's just think about the actual length of the activities. So I'm going to give you an example from my own intermediate class. The last couple of weeks we've been doing lots of present perfect work because, as you know, it takes students a long time. It's a minefield. It takes them a long time to get the hang of it, to get a really good understanding of it. They need that repetition. They need lots of exposure. And what's the point of spending a day solidly on it when you can incorporate it into future lessons in a smaller, more bite-sized way? If you're under pressure and you have to do something like the present perfect, or whatever, I get it. It's a lot of pressure, but it's all about baby steps and just building. And, if your students are exposed to enough examples of it and situations and context over, a period of weeks, I think it's a lot better for them. And that's exactly what I've been doing with my class. We've been spending maybe 15 minutes on it every day. We're not just doing a little exercise, like a correct the mistakes. We would do the exercise, but then we would talk about, we would analyse it. We would do the noticing. So I gave them two categories, like in its most basic sense, present perfect, before now, or something that started before now and is continuing up to the present. So every example we looked at, I would say, is it one or two, before now or started before now, leading up to the present. So they're getting a good sort of solid idea of the differences there. And there are so many institutionalized phrases, with the present perfect that you've got to think about context as well. Another day you could ask, who might be saying this, or how would you reply to this? That could be another activity. And you could use the same exercise as the one you did before. You did the noticing before, and now you're asking them, who do you think is saying this? Who are they saying it to? How would that person respond? Right? You're building those connections. You're not doing any extra sort of work yourself, but you are getting your students to really think. We've also been doing some pronunciation work. A lot of my students are Brazilians, and if anyone has had Brazilian students, they know that they have real trouble pronouncing ed on the end of regular verbs, and also those adjectives, like embarrassed or married, played, whatever. It's a real thing. So, I kind of introduced the concept in one lesson. We did a little game the next lesson. We repeated the game in the next day. Nothing wrong with repeating, because you can sort of see whether they've improved or not, which they did. You could do a dictation with them the next day, but again, my point is spread it out over various lessons or various weeks. Always come back to it, and you'll find that there's definitely more of a sense of progress there, a sense of improvement, because you can say, okay, think about how you did the last week with this, and now it's 2 weeks later or whatever. How do you feel now? I think that sense of progress is really, really important. We've also been looking at a song. Now, it's something that the students chose, so there is quite a lot of vocabulary that we had to look at. So we did lots of preparation work before we actually listened to the song. We looked at some vocab, and then the next day we listened to the song, and if they heard any of the vocab that we had looked at, they had to knock on the table. They really liked that. And then the next day I gave them a worksheet where a lot of the verbs were missing, and they had to write the gerund or infinitive of the verb depending on what the verb was before that or what the structure was before that. That was really useful. And then the next day we looked at a little bit more vocabulary, and then the next day we listened to the song again. So again, just spreading it out. And by the end of it, by sort of 4 or 5 sessions of looking at this song, they were all singing along with the chorus by the end of it, because it's a great song, and they seem to really enjoy every activity. And you might sort of think, oh, we're doing the same thing again, they might get bored. But you have to remember, this is a song they don't know the lyrics to. They might not have seen it before. Even if they have, you're going to do a deep dive on all this vocabulary. So, to think about it like that, just because you're doing something more than once, it doesn't mean students aren't benefiting from it. I would argue they're benefiting more from it, because you're really taking the time to explore the language, the structures, the vocab, whatever you like. So that repetition is super important. And, I'm a big fan of exploiting materials. So, like I said before, look at your resource and see how many angles there are. What different things can you do with it? Not only does that save you time, but it just gives students so much more bang for their buck. It's a win-win. So always ask yourself, how can you make this easier for yourself and more beneficial for your students? Now, if you like this idea of mini tasks, this is exactly what I'm going to be focusing on in my webinar, Beyond the Gap Fill. The idea is to create lots of practical mini tasks to get students speaking, and we're going to actually be creating 1 or 2 within the webinar together. Now, it depends on sort of how many people are there, how I can organise it. I might get groups doing a task each. We might just do one task together, because it's highly experimental on my end. So I really don't know how this will go, but I am really, really excited. I think it's a very different kind of webinar. How many webinars do you go to where you're actually asked to participate and create something? We're going to use good old Padlet, so obviously it can be exported as a PDF, and I can attach it to the replay email. And then what I would like to do as well is look at, okay, now we've got this little mini task, this result, what angles can we look at it from? How many different things can we do with this one mini task? How can we exploit it? Because at the end of the day, I want to make your life easier, guys. We are highly creative, but we sometimes get bogged down in the pressure of the work and, oh, we have to do this. I want to search for more materials. Well, maybe you don't have to, You don't have to. We're going to explore that in the webinar, and I think it's going to be really, really beneficial for you. The link is in the show notes. Like I said, the webinar is absolutely free. It's on February the 18th at 7 p.m. UK time. Replays will be available along with the PDF of your work. For transparency, I will be promoting the second run of my Heart and Craft, the Mindset Methodology Blueprint for Language Teachers course, but there is no obligation to buy it. But a girl's got to make a living. But I just feel like I can offer you so much more, and I feel like I've really improved the course from last year, and I'm going to try and take all my own advice, baby steps, lots of interactive tasks, try not to overload you with too much stuff, and everything's highly practical. So you're just going to be able to go away from every session and just use something, which I think is really exciting. Also, I will say, though, that you will get the best discount for the course if you attend the webinar and you are interested in it. There is a 3-day limit on the special offer. You can watch the replay and still avail of the special offer, but like I said, there's only 3 days for that. Now, if you want more information on my Heart and Craft course, you can visit my website. The link is in the show notes, or you can email me. My details are in the show notes. The course starts on the 25th of February. If you are a member of my newsletter community, Breathe Easy Teacher, you can get a discount, but it just won't be quite as generous as the webinar. Contact me if you need any more information or if you have any questions. And if you are a school who would like some professional development, I am available in person or online. So again, go to my website or email me. All my information is in the show notes. And until next week, my darling gorgeous teacher, take a nice deep breath, go to your happy place, look after yourself, and share the love. Bye.